This is Jared Rand. Welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Friday, November 29, 2024, after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We're having a reverse aging health call tonight and all the rest. It'll after 9:15 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go over, the variance between the programs that look like the good programs but aren't. And be careful of those. Interesting for all of us is that ask yourself this question. When you walk by the mirror, can you look at yourself? Now, I've talked to a lot of people that say, I don't even bother to look at myself. I don't bother to look at my body or anything. I just ignore it. And what do we attribute that to? Well, obviously the ego mind. And, we look at, in the United States, in America, you might retire at 55 or 65 or maybe later. Medicare for health care begins at 65. But other than starting to qualify for senior discounts, there's no clear rite of passage for becoming an elder or a senior. You do not quite know what the cutoff is for being considered old. Economic productivity and social roles cause so much stress in our society. This modern hunting tribe, in traditional hunting societies, the tribe has to keep moving. And when old people can't keep up, they tend to just be left behind. In terms of having a function, they're treated as irrelevant. There's a little story of an old Chinese man who retires. He's too old to even help the family work in the garden. One day, the family is sitting on the porch talking, and the old man's son thinks, he's so old. He just eats food. What good is he? Now it's time for him to be done. So he makes a wooden box, puts the box on the wheelbarrow, and rolls the wheelbarrow up to the porch and says, "Father, get in." The father gets into the box. The son puts the cover on the box, starts to wheel it toward the cliff. As he gets to the edge of the cliff, there's a knocking from inside the box. The father says, "Son, I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, but may I suggest you just throw me over the cliff and save the box. Your children will need it later." One thing that happens to some of us is avoid getting trapped in our Western youth biased model. You get very surprised how different the feelings around aging were in other cultures. Like in India, you look at in a village in the mountains, and you can go to any of the villages in the mountains of India. And you can say that to some of the people, you might know some of them, and you're looking so old, you're so gray. My first reaction to that was my Western conditioning. What an insult. God, that's terrible. But when I quieted down, I heard the tone in which he spoke. He was saying it with great respect and affection. I had become a respected elder in the society. You've earned the respect due an elder. You're someone whose wisdom can rely on, to whom we will listen. Okay? Now, that doesn't happen here yet. You look at the Vedic philosophy of India, it has 4 principal stages of life, or ashramas. To age 20, you are a student. From 20 to 40, you are a householder, raising children and caring, earning money. From 40 to 60, when your children are grown, they take over your business and you study philosophy, make pilgrimages, and do spiritual practice. From 60 on, you give up your responsibilities. You are free. Society supports you because it needs the wisdom you have to offer. Isn't that interesting? That's how I look at older bodies, people, right? But in our culture, society in this country, unfortunately, older ones are looked upon as they get in the way, they cause situations. You don't like to get behind them when you're driving. They're unpredictable and so on and so forth. And all they usually do is eat. Look at the difference. We cannot afford to have anybody leave the body because of the knowledge they have will go with them. We won't be able to access it. Not for a long time. So this is one of the reasons, priorities, is to keep people in the body. Now, in cultures with extended family structures, everybody has natural roles. Old people are honored and respected. They remain part of the family, and the old and young become wise fools together. It's all built into the system. But in our Western culture, we have an aging problem. Western technology moves so fast that we quickly become outdated. The usefulness of our elders' wisdom becomes questionable. And unbelievable, there's a lot of people on this planet that they do not know anything about computer programs. And you've heard the old dogs can learn new tricks. But many of the elder, they don't know how many new tricks they want to learn. Or maybe they'll just decide to be outdated. Let's at least recognize that we are living in a system that has gotten out of balance. You and I are paying the price for having grown up in a materially oriented society that values people in terms of their products, their achievements, and their ability to consume, instead of cultivating the quality of their being. The zeal for independence and individuality has alienated us not only from our deeper being, from family and community, but also from nature. Being out of touch with nature, as many of us are, we overlook the cycles of cold and warm, of autumn leaves falling, the natural cycles of birth, fruition, harvest, winter's death, and the rebirth of spring. The cycles of nature give an intuitive, innate meaning to aging, and they give you a feeling of the appropriateness of time and place. If our old people feel empty of purpose. Perhaps it is because our culture's vision for the end of life is lacking as well. An older man is walking down the street, and he hears a voice saying, "Psst, could you help me out?" He looks around, but he doesn't see anybody. Again he hears, "Psst, could you help me out?" He looks down, and there is a big frog. He's embarrassed. I mean, you don't talk to frogs. But he says, "Did you really speak to me?" The frog says, "Yeah. Could you help me out?" "Well, what's the problem?" "I'm under a curse. If you pick me up and kiss me, I will turn back into a beautiful maiden. And I will serve you and cook for you and warm your bed. And I will be everything you ever wanted." The man stood there for a little while. Then he picked up the frog, and he put it in his pocket. He walked on. After a while, the frog said, "Hey, you forgot to kiss me." The man said, "You know, at my age, I think it is more interesting to have a talking frog." The nature of aging has to do with change. Old age trains us for change. Change in our body, change in memory, change in our relationships, change in energy, change in your family and social role, all leading to death, which is the big change in our lives. You can see this last part of your life, the age stage, as a diminution. On the other hand, from a spiritual standpoint, many of these aspects are sensationally great. The clamor of the ego calms, your motivations become clear, and wisdom begins to come forth. Wisdom is one thing in life that does not diminish with age. Wisdom is learning how to live in harmony with this world as it is in any given moment. One aspect of that wisdom is the deep understanding that we are all in the same boat. Out of that comes compassion. Compassion for yourself, compassion for others, compassion for the world. Can you allow the changes and delight in them and look for the wisdom inherent in each change rather than resisting them? Changing phenomena are endlessly wonderful and fascinating. But when who we think we are begins to change, the fascination turns into fear. Aging brings personal changes that are both physical and psychological. It's painful and confusing when the body doesn't do what it used to do and starts to do a lot of things it didn't used to do. Physical changes are endless. And if you're identified with your body, they can completely grab your consciousness. Whole Sunbelt colonies in places like St. Petersburg, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, are full of people sitting on benches reciting these changes to each other. They call them organ recitals. You don't ask, how are you? Unless you have the time to listen. Well, you can hear how real that is for some people. Just imagine sitting on those same benches with people like Albert Einstein, Pablo Picasso, Claude Monet, Marc Chagall, Bob Hope, Grandma Moses. Now, just for a fun turn the channel once more. Here, you're looking at yourself, pure awareness looking at itself. There's only one of it. You try to live life in a way that is harmonious with what you know on these other planes of consciousness. That harmony is part of the wisdom that comes with age. Learning how to grow old is the essential masterwork of wisdom, and one of the most difficult chapters in the great art of living. One of the subtle traps of the ego, of the mind, getting caught on channel 1 or 2, is your concepts of time. Because aging has to do with time. But there is a part of you that is not in time. And finding that place, resting in it, is a key part of this mystical journey. What you begin to see is that the spiritual journey is one of going deeper and deeper into your being, going behind that part of you that changes to seek the part that does not change. Now, we all know what that is, right? All the universe is but a sign to be read rightly. War and peace, love and separation are hidden gateways to other worlds. Let us not grow old still believing that truth is what most people see around them. Now here's the predicament. Things change. Your car gets old. Your body gets old. The eternal, external changes are obvious. The harder and subtler task is to recognize that thoughts and feelings in your life will be traumatic because they counter the core model of who you think you are. As long as you identify with your thoughts and feelings, as long as you think those thoughts and feelings are you, they will be a source of suffering. As you face the changes associated with aging, you can get trapped in a whole list of grim psychological possibilities, despair, depression, feelings of worthiness, worthlessness, frustration, doubt. As long as you think these thoughts and feelings are you, they will be a source of suffering. As you face the changes associated with aging, you can get trapped in a whole list of grim psychological possibilities, despair, depressions, feelings of worthlessness. Frustration, doubt, vulnerability, forgetfulness, irritability, loss of self-confidence, fear of the future, obsession with possessions, lack of meaning, loss of friends, fear of not having enough money, no one to touch, loss of power or influence. Now, you may try to maintain psychological security by holding on to things as they are, but you never know. There is a story of a farmer who had a horse that ran away. His neighbor came by and said, "Oh, that's terrible." Farmer said, "You never know." Next day, the horse came back, and it was leading 2 other wild horses. Neighbor said, "That's wonderful." And the farmer said, "You never know." Later, his son was training one of the wild horses. And while riding the wild horse, he fell off and broke his leg. The neighbor came by and said, "That's terrible." The farmer said, "You never know." The Cossack army came through, recruiting everybody, taking away all the able young men. They didn't take the farmer's son because he had a broken leg. The neighbor came by and said, "That's wonderful." And the farmer said, "You never know." And so it goes. There is a spiritual model that will allow us to age gracefully instead of the old psychological model that is fearful and frightened. Use the new uncertainty and negative feelings about aging as a wake-up call. Have compassion for yourself and allow yourself to open to the changes, and all the rest will follow. In a Hallmark card, I found a poem about losing our mind. Forgetting is great because it's such fun to remember. But the greatest psychological fear we have is of losing our mind. So this poem says, "Just a line to say I'm living. I'm not among the dead. Though I'm getting more forgetful and more mixed up in the head. Sometimes I can't remember when I stand at the foot of the stair, if I must go up for something, or if I've just come down from there. And before the fridge, so often my poor mind is in full of doubt. Have I just put food away, or have I come to take some out?" And there are times when it is dark out, with my nightcap on, my head, I don't know, if I'm retiring or just getting out of bed. So if it's my turn to write you, there is no need for getting sore. I may think that I've written and don't want to be a bore. Remember, I do love you. I wish you were here. It's nearly mail time, so I'll say goodbye, dear. There I stood beside the mailbox with my face so very red. Instead of mailing you my letter, I have opened it instead. I love my new bifocals. My dentures fit me fine. My hearing aid is perfect. But Lord, I miss my mind. It is easier to extricate oneself from the changes of aging when the changes don't involve one's own personality. Now, while you may be able to see the body as object, it is very hard to see the personality as object because you've identified with it for so long. You think that's who you are. Even though they keep changing, you keep identifying with those thoughts and feelings. Now we're getting more into the here and the heart of the matter. Can you find a place to stand in relation to change where you are not frightened by it? Can you live in the presence of change? Even enjoy the changes, work with the changes, become an elder, do all the things that involve changing, and at the same moment, cultivate. And as the same moment, cultivate equanimity, clarity, loving awareness, compassion, and joy. Balancing those qualities is really what the deep spiritual work is about. See, we concentrate so much on this, and it's never really addressed much. And it's high time that it is addressed. One of the reasons that old age is so disconcerting to many people is that their roles change. And with those changes, they experience a loss of purpose, a diminished sense of value, identity, and self-worth, confusion about how to behave, the feeling of no longer being needed. People are uncertain how to restructure their lives, how to manifest as a being whose role is now totally unfamiliar to them. Retirement and having children leave the parental nest are two role changes that come to mind. Recognize in yourself the conflicting forces. Part of you wants to stay effective in this world, and part of you wants to be contemplative. Really give that contemplative part some space. Water is a bit, water it a bit. Give it some sunlight to grow instead of creating it as an error. Give yourself the opportunity to grieve for the end of dreams, for the end of childhood, for all the people that go away, for the sorrow of parting. When you experience fear or are unsure about your situation, there's a beautiful and very powerful mantra you can say. And here it is. The power of God is within me. The grace of God surrounds me. Repeat it to yourself or to a loved one in need. It will protect you. Experience the power of it. It's like a solid steel shaft that goes through the top of your head right down into the base of your being. Grace will surround you like a force field. One of the gifts of old age is no longer caring so much about what others think of us. Aging allows us to be more eccentric. And when we were younger, we were expected to behave in a certain way. And as we age, we can let it all fall apart a little more. We are free to be ourselves, to follow our hunches, to experiment, or to do nothing at all. As age liberates us from our old roles and offers a different load and a different kind of freedom and an authentic way of being. Nadine Strain was 85 when she wrote the poem, If I Had My Life to Live Over. 85. I'd like to make more mistakes next time. I'd relax. I would limber up. I would be stiller than I have been this trip. I would make more chances. I would climb more mountains and swim more rivers. I would eat more ice cream and less beans. I would perhaps have more actual troubles, but I'd have forever imaginary ones. Fewer. You see, I'm one of those people who live sensibly and sanely, hour after hour, day after day. Oh, I've had my moments, and if I had it to do over again, I'd have more of them. In fact, I'd try to have nothing else, just moments, one after another, instead of living so many years ahead of each day. I've been one of those beings, who never goes anywhere without a thermometer, a hot water bottle, raincoat, and a parachute. If I had to do it again, I would travel lighter than I have. If I had my life to live over, I would start barefoot earlier in the spring and stay that way later in the fall. I would go to more dances. I would ride more merry-go-rounds. I would pick more daisies. Do not get caught in your old roles. If you cultivate the ways you exist behind personality, pure awareness of the witness, the I am loving awareness, place in your heart, you will begin to live more in your soul. You ever see the beloved when you look at another being? Then everyone you see is a soul, as well as a mirror for your own soul. Relationships become so beautiful. Each being's struggle, each being's journey is so exquisite. Let yourself stop for a moment and appreciate this beauty. It is so precious. Most people have no idea they are beautiful. They're busy being non-beautiful because they think, if only I had this or that, then I'd be beautiful. But who they are, their pain, their beauty, is all so beautiful. The beloved keeps appearing to you in one guise or another. You can cultivate this view and practice your ability to see the soul. Seeing the subtlety inside another being also depends on your ability to acknowledge it in yourself. It takes one to know one. If we don't address that much because none of us like to talk about it. But what happens when, see, it changes everything. I shared with you some philosophy about aging and perspectives and how we think about it, how we feel about it, how we believe with it. And then you can turn around and say, okay, you're young forever. Literally, you no longer age. You are young forever. Changes everything, doesn't it? How do you feel the appreciation would be? The gratitude. How would you feel knowing that you are forever young? And you have all the life experience. Can you imagine how empowering that will be for this civilization? You won't be decrepit. You won't have mind gaps. Imagine how quickly we will accelerate as a species. Imagine that. I mean, phenomenal. Now, you have someone that's, say, 30, naturally, right? And you come along and have 2,000, 3,000 years under your belt. Won't it be interesting to see how you respond to someone who is completely oblivious? And they look at you, you're 27, they're 30, and they look at you and say, well, you're a young guy. Well, I'm older than you. I'm 3 years older than you. Well, they could probably be one of your great-grandchildren. Great-grandchildren. It's going to be a whole different existence for every one of us. And it's how we perceive and how we view and how we believe. Now, I don't believe that the majority of us even think about many areas. But as we progress, as we advance, as we evolve, we will become more and more and more aware about ourselves. And you imagine the knowledge that's accumulated on this planet that's no longer going to be wasted or no longer going to leave the planet. Almost, it motivates you to just go out and start hugging people, doesn't it? And then when we start out at youthfulness, right? But we've all been there. You're 9, 10, 11, 12, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 20, so on and so forth. It's a great adventure. You're indestructible. And it doesn't take long to say, I feel a little stiff here or I feel a little creaky there. Never felt that before. Everything is a new experience. Every split second is a new experience. And that's what each and every one of us are doing. We're experiencing and we're evolving into higher and higher and higher frequencies. deep, eternal love light, bliss, joy, happiness. And it's you choose it. You choose it. Nobody else chooses it. No one else can choose it. You choose it for you. And you choose, you know what, I don't care to act old, to talk about my, operations and surgeries and things like that, and this happening, that happening. Because you know that's what takes place. You get around a group in their late 80s and 90s that have stuck together through the years, they're inevitability that they're going to talk about what? Their bodies. So in quiet time of this meditation, focus on how young you will always be. I join you in meditation. I'll return to close this out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose, and an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still, relaxed into your body. Focus on your breath rising and falling. Remain in a state of curiosity. Have you ever noticed that you simply cannot experience suffering when you're living in a state of curiosity? You really can't. When you're in a place of wonder, great awe, and childlike playfulness, you cannot create anything but joy, gratitude, and love. The mind is a very playful mechanism. And when you let it roam this universe freely, you will see that it naturally desires to learn. Learn how to experience everything as if it was brand new. So for the next 24 hours, I invite you to remain in a perpetual and consistent exploration of the feeling of curiosity. You just might discover how extraordinary the ordinary truly is. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night, the following morning. And we will return here tonight at a little after 9:15 p.m. Eastern to continue our reverse aging health call and all the rest. And Saturday, November 30, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern to continue our global guided meditation call. Be gentle, kind, generous, humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, purest of the purest purest, eternal gratitude at all times. No matter what's going on out there or within here, open your heart and allow the magic to flow in.